Kari Lake is a Republican candidate for office. And so obviously in 2022, she has to assure you that she despises the LGBTQ plus community, totally hates and doesn't recognize the trans community, and in particular is very worried about the threat posed on a daily basis by drag queens. She's been posting about on social media with this tweet, not just a couple days ago, saying they kicked God out of schools and welcomed the drag queens. I don't have any issues with that as a historical analysis of the US. They took down her flag and replaced it with a rainbow. There's literally flags at like every school. They do the Pledge of Allegiance at public schools. Anyway, they seek to disarm Americans and militarize our enemies. I don't even know what that's a reference to. Let's bring back the basics: gods, guns, and glory. So that's who she is. Also, back on June 4th, she tweeted, put out a tweet condemning drag queens then too. She tweeted a video of a drag queen performing in front of kids in Texas, oh my God, and said, "This is grooming, this is child abuse. Maybe that's acceptable in Dallas, Texas, but it will not be tolerated in a Kari Lake-led Arizona." Weird burn of conservative Dallas, Texas by a Republican there, but anyway, just the fact that there were drag queens is grooming. Those drag queens, by being near kids, obviously wanted to have sex with the kids. That is clear to her. What isn't clear is how any of this is consistent with the apparent way that she lived her life before she decided to be a candidate for office, because she was outed by Richard Stevens, who performs as drag queen Barbara Seville, as having previously been very fond of drag queens and their performances. You can see Kari Lake on the left there, standing with a drag queen. Now, Richard Stevens included several photos of him and Kari Lake and wrote, "I've performed for Kari's birthday. I've performed in her home with children present, and I've performed for her at some of the seediest bars in Phoenix as Marilyn Monroe in front of Lake's daughter, who was around 9 or 10 at the time." And he said that he reiterated that he performed inside Lake's home. And he said, "I spoke up because her alarming rise to power under these new views are scary and can lead to real harm to me and other marginalized people." Now, we will have her response to this in a moment, but Francesca, I mean, like I often say, like I jokingly say nobody could see this coming, but in this case, I don't know that I would have predicted it, but no, she was perfectly fine with drag queens until she was trained by her party. From one moment to the next, they all decided drag queens are the greatest threat facing America and they need to be eliminated.
Bless him, oh my God, for speaking out and saying, no, I was hired. And like, she's got terrible interior design, let's just be honest. Like, I just wanted him to keep going. Like, and your kid was there, and this wasn't the first time I'd performed for you, and there's a photo of us. It's so ridiculous. It is, I just, yeah, this is, and on top of that, like, I think, obviously, coming for the most fabulous is terrible, right? And we should all speak up, right? Because then we can say, first they came for the fabulous, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't fabulous, and so you have to speak up if you think you're fabulous. The point is that I think the whole thing is conflating it with just being gay in general, and like the idea that being gay is anti-American. Like that is somehow with no consciousness that there are currently people in our military serving overseas right now who are gay.
Yep.
Like, and in law enforcement everywhere who are gay. And now they're being told essentially, no, they're anti-American, that they don't matter, that their identities, that they're who they love is inherently treasonous.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is what Christian nationalist fascism looks like. And it's all coming to a head. But of course, it's a projection. Of course, she hired them.
Yeah, by the way, it shouldn't need to be clarified, but being a drag queen does not mean that you're gay. It doesn't mean that you're trans. These are all different things. Does she know? Do any of them know? I assume she does, since she apparently hung out with drag queens, so she knows at least a little bit about the community. Those aren't the same thing at all.
Yes.
But the right has no idea. They don't know about the difference between gender and sex. They don't know the difference between gender and sexual orientation. That these are, one's like a fundamental identity, the other is who you're sexually attracted to. They don't know any of this. They just know that like, we need something to be really mad about. We got a lot of traction out of the gay thing a few decades ago. Let's just do that again, and let's lump everything into it. All of it's just gay, I guess.
Drag is a performance.
It's a performance. That's all it is.
Literally an art form as a performance. And I know we're gonna talk about this, but like, it doesn't involve stripping. I hate when people think that it involves stripping. It's not stripping.
Yeah, there are like straight cis people stripping that they're attacking as drag queens. So do they have an issue now with Mrs. Doubtfire? Is Tootsie a big issue? What is, again, this is all just so artificial. And so still, again, identifying it as artificial is not saying that it's not important. Obviously, the fact that we talk about this a couple of times on every show over the past few months implies that we do think it's important. It is important because of the damage that will be done to real people's lives. But it is a total artificial construct. They just decided this is what we're gonna freak out about. And because their followers are piranha, just desperate for meat to be thrown into their river, they're like, yeah, no, the trans community, we're gonna consume that. That's what's happening right now.
No, now Proud Boys are showing up at drag shows, is what's happening.
Exactly. And where is that gonna end? Everyone knows. Now, Kari Lake has responded to the perfect identification of her obvious hypocrisy. She knows who she hung out with in the past. She did all of this for political opportunism. And she tweets, "It is truly disgusting that this even has to be addressed, but adults should not undress in front of children or sexualize them in any way," which isn't any of what we're talking about. And she knows that. She's continuing to lie. "The media is the enemy of the people and frankly, the right hand of the devil." She wants to be a governor and she says journalists are a tool of Satan. Okay, she responds to Richard Stevens or whatever, say that it's a public attack to point out what she did. Stevens has been radicalized in recent years. So it was an unradical drag queen that you were hanging out with before, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, goes on to say, like clockwork, the fake media will latch onto any story regardless of its validity. No, you're in the photo. Like we know what you did. Anyway, they wrote a hit piece against Kari's daughter for working at Turning Point USA. What the hell needs to happen to make them report on Joe Biden's son? Well, but you want them to report on Joe Biden's son. Ergo, you think it's okay to report on the children of politicians. So what do you, like, again, there's no consistency whatsoever to any of this. Why is the media fighting so hard to defend the grooming of our children? You know that it's not grooming. You hung out with them. You had drag queens perform for your children. And there's nothing wrong with that because a performance by a drag queen is not the prelude to sex with a child. You understand that as well as everyone else does. It is absolutely 100% disgusting that you would lie and pretend that you don't understand that so that you can potentially win a political office. That is so disgusting, it should be utterly disqualifying. But I saw the responses to that tweet of hers, and people seem to buy her explanation. They don't think that it's inconsistent. That checks out. Yeah.
Serve him. Do it. Serve a lawsuit. Let's see if you win.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.